Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first TransVirtual Ask Me Anything webinar. So I appreciate everyone taking the time out of their day to join us. We're excited to have you all here, and hopefully everyone can get a lot out of it. Joining me today will be Matthew Corby, who's our support manager. Matt's one of the experts in the platform. I'm sure many of you have spoken with him, and we're keen just to make sure that as an organisation, we're always helping you learn and get more and more out of the TransVirtual platform. So my name is Will Barclay. I'm your Customer Success Manager here. If you haven't had a chance to speak with me before, I'll show you how you can get in touch with me in this webinar. Please do reach out. Always keen to have a chat with you. If I can't be the person that can help you out, I can always point you in the right direction. So firstly, I'd like to thank everyone who's registered and submitted their questions. We had an overwhelming number of questions. It was fantastic. They did range from very specific questions around certain parts of the platform all the way through to people saying, look, I just want to learn anything and everything about TransVirtual. So thanks for taking the time to fill it out. Today, we will cover off some of the more recurring questions we came across and some of the ones that we felt were shared across the user base. If you've asked a question and we aren't able to cover it today, please know that we will reach out to you and have a chat with you and make sure we're giving you some support there. A lot of these questions will be covered later on as well. We're always looking to do more and more for our customer base. We'll be running these webinars regularly. So we'll show you how you can always submit those information, and we're keen to make sure that we're always just rolling through and helping you guys learn more and more. So jumping into the questions that we'll cover today, as I said, we had an overwhelming number of responses coming through from our user base, which was fantastic. These were the most frequently asked questions that we received. Firstly, what is the best way for new staff to learn about TransVirtual? We find a lot of our customers are bringing on new staff. The challenge of getting a staff on board with all your different systems these days is a real challenge. What we're going to show you is just some tips and tricks how you can supplement any one-on-one training you give your staff members and make sure that they feel supported as they learn a brand new platform. We've also had a lot of people come to us say, look, my TransVirtual looks different. You may know other organisations that use our platform. You may have noticed that you have different colour schemes coming through, different layouts. We'll just show you how you can use TransVirtual settings to adjust those and make sure that you're on the latest look and you're getting the most efficiency when you navigate through the platform. A very frequent one we come across, and not only just in this AMA's responses, but also in day-to-day dealings I find with customers. A lot of people are looking to show and hide different fields in TransVirtual. Not everyone uses TransVirtual for the same operations. Every company is a little bit different, and certain bits of information are really important and others not as critical to your business. So what we can help you do here is we'll show you how you can narrow down the areas you see. Different fields may not be relevant to you. Other fields may be more important. We'll show you how you can really easily filter for information and make sure that when you're looking at a page in TransVirtual, you're seeing precisely what you want to see and no other junk around it. We've also had a lot of people questioning how they can keep up to date with their pricing zones. Everyone who sets up the system obviously goes through quite a process to get all their zones set up in the system initially. However, a lot of people are challenged when it comes to organisational change. You may be expanding your business, you may be doing some repricing or a tweaking of your zones. We'll show you just how you can actually manage that nice and easily and some tips to make sure that when you do need to update the system, it's nice and easy. And lastly, how can we contact TransVirtual? Seems like a simple one, but a lot of people do struggle with knowing what's the best way to get in touch with us. What is the best way to lodge requests? We'll take you through that at the end. Just make sure that everyone is aware of who you should be contacting under what circumstance and what are the different ways you can get in touch with us. We know people have different preferences, so we'll take you through that all at the end. So let's get stuck in and learn a little bit about TransVirtual. Start with what I'd like to introduce everyone to is the Transvirtual Knowledgebase. And for those of you who've been using TransVirtual a while, I'm sure you've been introduced to our portal before. For anyone that hasn't seen it before, you can simply go to support.transvirtual.com to view all of our help articles here. Now, in context of bringing on new starters, this is a great place for them to learn about TransVirtual, whether they're going in and they just need to get the bare basic minimum questions around the mobile app, for example. They can jump in, quickly see the Android mobile app and see everything relating to loading or delivering or searching through the platform on the mobile app. Really simply, they can search articles as well. So that way, if I need to, when I search through, I'll be able to see all of the articles relating to loading. And I can even say, okay, I've got an iPhone, iOS, I'll jump into that little help article here. And it's going to show me all the little ways that I can actually go and load a vehicle using the TransVirtual mobile app. Now, for anyone who's bringing on super users or those people in your organization who will have a high level of responsibility through the TransVirtual platform, I'd strongly recommend getting them to look into our Quick Start Guide as well. To get to the Quick Start Guide, just go to the Knowledge Base section, go into your transport, and then go to the Getting Started setup. From here, you'll see a link to our Quick Start Guide. And this is really simply some basic instructions for any users on how to quickly get involved and get started using TransVirtual. So for example, if I need to understand a little bit about how pickup's completed, I can go through, I've got a really simple text version of completing pickups through the Android app. The beauty of this is you can actually print it out, you can circulate it amongst your team. It's not too dense. It's aimed at just quickly getting people on board and making sure that when you're not around, you're not there to handhold them, they've got a nice little guide they can refer back to as a refresher. So as you're bringing on your team, really strongly recommend that you do encourage them to get into the portal, get them searching. You bring on these starters, they should be able to get more independent as they go along, and that knowledge base acts as a great way just to make sure that if you're not around to help them, they've got an avenue to go to. In addition to that, everyone, I'd also encourage your team to make sure they're aware that we've got a support team. Get them emailing support@transvirtual.com for any queries or any questions they might have around the platform. Our team are also available. We do offer training services too, so we can look at organising training to show you different areas of the platform. That is a chargeable service, but it's available to you if you feel that your team need that little extra help or would like some guidance from our expert team. So just jumping through now, Matt, I might actually hand over you to take over the reins and give us a bit of a dive into the system.
No worries. I'll just bring up my screen here. Excellent. So first thing I was going to talk about today is the new UI. So in TransVirtual, as you would see on my screen now, we have the this is from probably more than 12 months ago. So if this is one of the original layout of TransVirtual, so for people still using this version of TransVirtual, you can actually go to Settings, Global Setup, and if you scroll down on the right-hand side, you will see a section here called Style 2022 and Navigation 2022. So new clients actually get a new style layout, which if I refresh here, is just a different color scheme. You can leave the menu to be the same as it currently is, or you can also switch to our Navigation 2022. So any people also using our warehousing module will need to use the new navigation because it takes into account all the additional options available. So certainly if anyone wants to take advantage of those new layout options, that would be where you can do that from. The second thing we were going to cover off today was filtering and adding and removing columns, etc., from your display. So currently I'm in the consignment filter, which in the new UI is found under Transport Consignments. So a little hidden feature some people aren't aware about is up the top right-hand corner here. You can actually select an option here to add in additional columns and fields. So you might want to display here the customer total grand price, and you can add that to display on your consignment screen here and see the prices that are being charged out. So you can add the grand total base, etc. And so there's a whole array of different fields that can actually be added in there. The additional features up here, so you can actually set or define, sorry, for new staff, new customers or agents logins, and also current users can be updated to match your current layout from this, which is helpful when needing to set it up for customers in particular. Within the consignment search page, there is a lot of filter and searching functionality built into it. So some people may be aware, but you can search for a consignment using the consignment number field. You can also just look for consignments starting with a certain number. With date columns, you can search for consignments within a date range, similar to that, or for a specific date, in addition to the option that's available up the top right-hand side. So you might want to filter by last status change or different fields along those lines. With the text fields, so you can look for fields and filter by names and how they're starting. You might also want to, you can use the percentage symbol to look for names containing words. So if you only know part of an address or part of a name, you can use the percentage symbol to search within the contents of those fields. You can also use the exclamation mark, and that indicates so it's not starting with. So it would take away anything that starts with Matt there. So it's only showing test. That's particularly handy for the status fields. You might only want created consignments. You might want to see everything that's been delivered. And so certainly you can filter by that. With the quantity and weight fields, you can also, if you want to find all of the consignments potentially under 80 kilos, you can put a less than symbol and or a greater than symbol, which would show higher. If you just type 80, it will only bring up consignments with a weight of 80 kilos. So in addition to those inline filters, which are available there, you do also have the ability to create saved filters. So in here, I have one where the receiving suburb state is New South Wales, and that's saved there. You can share it with other people within your account, and so yeah, you may use it for things like delivered, so you can filter quite quickly just to consignments that are delivered. This one being Queensland, so this will show me all of the consignments going to a suburb in Queensland. Now to build them, you can click on this filter option here. You can, if I clear that out. So in my example, I might add one in here looking for consignments going to the Northern Territory. So I can give it a name and that will cause it to save. And if I search here for receiving state equals, sorry, my screen there. Look for the Northern Territory here, so NT, and add that in. So these one, I can then validate it. It shows me that it is actually working and go show results. If I refresh that now, so it will show me, so Rapid Creek being in the Northern Territory, showing me all consignments now going to the Northern Territory. So hopefully that's been quite useful. You can also use these options in the invoice screens. Anywhere where there's inline filters, you can use the different fields. Also, you might want to look for invoices over $1,000 or something along those lines. So you can also use those fields in here, as well as build pre-saved ones if required. And one of the other questions we had was around zones. So specifically, zones in TransVirtual, by default, every account gets a head ports and an auto assignment zone list. When you want to obviously refine that, so often often people will do that for pricing, for rating setups. You can have a separate zone list, certainly for every customer you might have in your business. You can have one set of zones, but different prices for all different customers. So it's probably something we'd show later on, how to set up the rate cards according to the zones. But today's example, one of the most important things to initially set up would be head ports. So this is typically in TransVirtual would be your depot locations. So you might only have one depot, or you might have 5 or 10. So in my scenario here, I have one in all the capital cities, and then I've set up which suburbs or postcodes, sorry, get serviced by that suburb. So later on, when I'm trying to report how many consignments are handled through my Adelaide depot, whether it be sending or receiving, I can then later on do some reporting. We can also use those as the filters in the consignment filter page and look for things going to or from particular head ports. So it can become very useful down the track if defined when you're first setting up an account. If you do have an account and these aren't set up, then it's quite useful to make the time to do that. With regards to, so head port zones are there. You can refine that in more detail with label route zones. So you might want to have on your labels print out codes so that your staff can sort freight better within your depot locations. So that might be that each depot, if I go into mine here, so I've got a SYD1, an SYD2, or an SYD remote. So in my Sydney depot, I'll have freight come in, and I might want those codes to show on my freight so I know which part of the depot that freight's got to be moved to, so it can be sorted. You may even have individual suburbs set aside for different runs, different drivers, and you could refine that down. This could be quite a large series, and each label can have that indicate on the label for sorting purposes. We can also use zone lists to define misdirected freight and also line haul scanning. So if something were to get scanned in a depot that it's not supposed to be coming to, these zones are very important for the system to know whether or not it is actually coming to a location it should or shouldn't be in. One of the other functionalities in the zones is a limited or no service zone. So you have the ability to, if your business doesn't cover all suburbs in Australia, you can define limited area where a consignment created will just prompt a warning to the customer that they may be contacted to collect the freight, or that it may only get serviced certain days of the week. And there's also a no service area. So you can define suburbs where you potentially aren't ever going to deliver freight to, and that would prevent a customer from being able to create consignments going to that location. So if I quickly go and show you for my example here. So create a consignment. I'm going to have this go to Bathurst Island. There might just be one carton, 10 kilos. And the user would get an error. And that error is actually something I've defined. So in that zone list, I've said, unfortunately, we do not service this area. And that is the error that gets shown to the user. Similar to if I were to try to create, I can actually successfully create, but it will warn that this is a limited service area and delivery or collection from nearest location may be required for my company. But you can actually define what that warning will be to the user. In setting up zones, you can, I use my label route zones as an example. I touched on before that for my, here I can actually create and I can specify postcodes that would be set by that rule. I can also set rules by suburb. So in my example, if I look at the postcode I set there, it has NEW1 as the current zone for all of those. But I might have an example for a suburb close by, and I don't necessarily go to all of the suburbs within that postcode. So, or I may want them to be handled by a different run and have a different label route on it. So I can actually go in here, you can right click on the suburb and add to zone. So that will add to the current zone you've selected, which is indicated up the top here as well. And you may want to add other zones too, so you could quickly go through and add these to different zones. If you make a mistake, you can still right click and remove that suburb, and that is handled there quite easily. So essentially, as a high level overview, your zones, you have your head ports, which are defining your depots, label routes, which help with sorting and can be displayed on labels. You have your limited and no service zones, which indicate areas you do or have limited, or have limited service to. You will also have rating zones. As I said, you can have multiple for each customer. Each customer can have their own set of zones, or you can have one set of zones to use across all of them. One of the ones I hadn't touched on yet is transit zones. So you may have service times between different locations. So Sydney to Melbourne might be a 1-day service, but Sydney to Perth might be a 5-day service. So in here you would define Sydney, you would define Perth, and then in a separate part of the system, which we can cover in a future AMA if needed, on how you can define that between those zones. Auto assignment, also another zone list which can be quite useful for automatically assigning work. So you might have another TransVirtual customer who does deliveries for you in a certain area. You can set up zones for each of those particular people. You can even set up zones for your own drivers so that when consignments, either pickups come in, you can have them automatically allocate to the driver who's supposed to be covering that area, and or an agent in a different account to have that consignment allocated to them for the delivery part of it. And that about covers it off for zones.
Perfect. Matt, one question.
Awesome.
When someone's looking to update their zone list, so say they need to look at doing some updates and tweak the system, do you have any tips and tricks as to how people could review what's currently set up and easily update using spreadsheets or any other bulk method?
Yep, no worries. Certainly. So within here, you can click on your certain zone list. The edit zones and suburbs is obviously where you can go in and edit the postcodes that are assigned to them, or edit it by suburb. Sometimes you will want to download because you might have to do in bulk. You can download zones here. That will give you an Excel spreadsheet where you can see what zones the suburbs and postcodes are assigned to that. You can also download your missed suburbs, which will give you a list of all of the suburbs and postcodes that you haven't assigned any zones to. So it can help with capturing any that you potentially haven't. You can then later on re-import that zone listing. So to import a zone list, you can go to, or you may want to update, an existing one. I go into here, I can go to new zone and import zones. I can then map my file. So in my file, you would have multiple columns. You indicate in the list here which fields are in what columns. So to do this, you'd need minimum a zone name, a suburb, and a postcode. State is not necessarily required, and also the zone short name is not necessarily required. So a zone short name, which I didn't actually touch on before, is so a zone name might be Sydney, but your short name might be SYD, or NSW. So your zone name could be New South Wales and a short name be NSW. Later on used to show in places where you have limited space to indicate those names. So once you've mapped your file and uploaded it here, you can, if you've got a header in the file, so the top of your file has the names of the columns, you can ignore it because it won't need to be imported. And we can do either a complete fresh import, so that would remove all of your zones and setup you've got there at the moment and completely override it with what you've got there, or you can have it append to what you've already got set up. Exclude postcode rules. This is basically when a file is getting imported, the system will create rules by postcode. So if you have all of the suburbs in a certain postcode set to one zone, it would create it by a postcode rule. You can have that completely not use postcodes and have it define them each by suburb. So that way you don't ever have to worry about working between one or the other. And that should be probably cover your question, I think, Will. Hopefully.
Perfect, thank you. Learn something every day here at Transvirtual. It's never a dull moment. Always more questions. Matt, we did have one question coming through from the chat from Melinda. She's just asked, can you export data to Excel? And I believe that might have been in reference to the consignment screen and some of those areas where you're running through before. Is there a way that people can get out that information?
Yeah, so certainly when you're in the consignment search page, you can filter your list here, like I have done to the Northern Territory, and you have an option down the bottom here. You can export it into CSV, Excel, or previous version of Excel via the bottom. That will export the current page you have displayed. So it would export my 170. If you wanted to export more than just what is displayed, so now that I've taken away my filter, I have 1 to 200 of 679, so there's 4 pages here. My option down the bottom here would only export the first page. You can actually go select all here and just refresh my screen. If I select and go to the bulk actions tool here, you can actually generate an Excel file of all of the data. So that will give you an Excel file with all of the pages and all of the columns that you've currently got set out on your page. So I think that probably covers that off.
That's perfect. Thank you for that. And just for everyone on the call here on the webinar, we do have a Q&A section. So if anyone else has some burning questions, do jump in and pop some questions. There we go, Claire. Thank you very much. So Matt, can you have the option in a COD note creation to request and confirm ID cited? And also, is there an option for collected from depot within Transvirtual?
So ID cited, sorry, would that may
looking at maybe a consignment status, perhaps, is there a way that people can add in their own statuses?
No, the statuses in Transvirtual are fixed. You could record in one of the reference fields that you have cited somebody's ID when creating the consignment. Certainly on the mobile app, when doing a delivery, we can force or require photos to be taken. So you could require a photo of someone's ID to be taken when doing a delivery. But when creating the consignment, there would be no ID cited sort of option. And what, sorry, was the other part of that question, Bill?
That's all right. So is there an option for collected from depot? Is there a way to?
Yep, so you can actually create depot drop. There is depot drop functionality in TransVirtual, so you can set up your depots to have with addresses via the zones, which is in our help database, but I don't actually have it set up in my account here. But you can actually get an option here where you can say depot drop, and when the customers are trying to then select an address, they would only get your depot locations to be able to create that consignment against.
Perfect. And we've also got a question from Henry, sorry. He's asking, can a customer see how much a job costs?
A customer certainly can. I may not have it here right at this point in time, but when creating a consignment, there certainly is the ability. That's as long as we've got rates set up for them to calculate a price. So here I do have, so this consignment is set up to cost $11, so $10 base price with the dollar GST.
No problem. And when the customer goes to view that cost, I assume there's settings in TransVirtual where you can control whether a customer in your own platform has the ability to view those costs. Is that right?
Yep, certainly, yes. You can certainly hide that functionality from customers or have it included in there.
Perfect. And, oh, sorry, Henry's just said after the assignment has been created. So that's all good. Yes, Henry.
Yeah.
Pretty much what we just ran through there.
That one depends. So by default, customers don't see prices after creation, but they certainly can be configured to do so.
Well, Matt, looks like that's all the questions from the chat for now. For everyone on the call, we will be reaching out to you following this. We're going to give you a recording of today's webinar in case some of you missed out or just want to recap some of it. We'll also give you some ways in that you can give us some feedback as well. Here at TransVirtual, we're looking to improve how we communicate with our customer base, making sure you guys are always at the front of any activity we're doing. Whenever we're looking to change things up, we want to make sure that we're benefiting our customers as much as possible. A big part of that is also going to be making sure that you guys can get in touch with us. So just quickly, sorry, I think we may have one new question that's come through. Sorry, everyone. Yes, of course. And sorry, Claire's just asked, guys, for anyone on the call, I'm just about to run through how you can chat with us. So for any questions you might have, these AMA webinars aren't the only place you can get in touch with us. Our support team are available. I'm always available for a chat too. And that's actually a great segue, Claire. So thanks for bringing that up. Just going to revert back to our screen here and just show everyone how we can get in touch with us. So first of all, at TransVirtual, we do have a support team that are available to help you with your configuration questions and requests. We can help you find some articles through the knowledge base if you can't find them yourselves and you would like to do it yourself. We can also help you out as well. We understand that sometimes things are difficult. A new system's hard to configure. Email support@transvirtual.com with any request you have, and our team can give you a hand. Whenever you are raising a request with our team, I would also encourage you to include as much information as possible. Really great tip when asking for help is say, what are you trying to achieve? What's your current result? And what is stopping you from achieving that as well? So sometimes it might be, I need to make sure that my staff are showing proof of ID somehow through the system. I've got nowhere where that they can do that. I'm not sure. I've tried this so far. I've tried to actually get them to take a photo. However, it's not forcing them to do it. Is there a way I can force them to take a photo? From there, our support team will be able to give you some instructions. We can help you configure it, make sure that we tweak the system and align it as much as possible to your process. Now, we also understand sometimes it's easier to have a chat. You can schedule calls with our support team. To schedule a call with our support team, click on the help menu inside of the TransVirtual portal itself. You'll then see an option to book an appointment with the team. Please note that when you do call through, that some charges may apply for discussions. We'd always say try and send through a request first. It's great to have that information available first in writing. We can read, digest it, make sure we clearly understand. And then what that may do is actually help us have a 30-second conversation, which is a lot easier rather than spending 15 minutes trying to understand your needs and then finding a really quick solution that most likely could have been put together in writing. So we can get you a nice quick turnaround there. Lastly, if you would like to talk about your TransVirtual use at a higher level, you might be looking to branch out into other areas of your business and get them using TransVirtual. You could be having some organizational changes, or maybe you just feel you get a bit more out of the platform but aren't sure where to start. I can help you out. Drop me an email, will.barclay@transvirtual.com. We can catch up for a customer success meeting. We can review what you're trying to do. We can understand your timelines, who's involved, what do you need from us, and then we can put together a bit of a strategy to make sure that you're getting the most out of the platform and you're loving and using TransVirtual as much as possible. So for everyone on the call, I just want to say a big thank you for all of your questions, all of your inputs, your time. We do appreciate it. As you can see there, we want you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you, so please don't be a stranger. You'll get an email from us with a recording of this webinar as well. I'll also include my contact details on that too. So please do reach out. We want to hear from you. We want to make sure you're feeling the love and care from TransVirtual. So from Matt and myself and the rest of the team, thank you very much, everyone. And we hope you have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you.